Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talk Soccer to Me, the best weekly soccer podcast you've never heard of. My name's Jack. Today is Wednesday, March 18th. We got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. We've got Premier League action, relegation fight, Champions League fight in Spain, Italy, Germany. We're going to touch on some France, Scotland. Yeah, we're talking Scotland today, as well as a little bit of Champions League and some Premier League goal scoring history. So I'm excited to get into this one. If you don't already, make sure to follow the podcast on every social media and streaming service possible. Obviously, whatever you're listening to this on now, whether it be YouTube or Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, whatever. Or if you saw us on TikTok, Instagram, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, comment, rate, share it, do whatever you got to do. Any support goes a super long way into making this show possible. But enough rambling. Let's get into it. It was Premier League Matchweek 30. Plenty of exciting matchup. Well, I say exciting. There wasn't a lot of goals, but we're going to talk about that later. The goals conversation is going to come later. We're going to jump straight into the games. We started on Saturday. The first game was Burnley-Bournemouth, and that was a goalless draw. It was a goalless draw. I hate goalless draws. I don't want to give any life or effort or credit into goalless draws because I hate them. I hate goalless draws. However, I'm going to go a little sidebar here. I do not like the rule proposal that goalless draws shouldn't result in a point for anyone. That seems a little too gimmicky for, professional soccer. I think games are a little too important. Let's say like Burnley was playing Manchester City instead of Bournemouth today, and both teams are in their respective title fight, relegation fight. In the title fight scenario, yeah, it might have made sense to not reward a point, but if a scrappy underdog can play defensively, play it well, and conjure up a draw, I think they're fully deserving of that point. So I don't agree with that, but they still upset me. And so shame onto Burnley and Bournemouth. That was massively disappointing. The second game on Saturday that we're going to talk about is Sunderland versus Brighton. This is an exciting one, 49th minute. Sunderland thought they got a goal, but it was called back for offsides. Then the 58th minute, Brighton had a corner. It was initially cleared. Sunderland had a player to go to ground. Ref let him play on. The ball ends up in the back with the corner kick taker, Yakuba Minte, and he just swings at it after beating his man one-on-one near the goal line. And the Sunderland keeper, Robin Roofs, shockingly got beat at his near post. Actually, correction, it wasn't Roofs, it was the backup. And that was it for action. The final in this one, Sunderland 0, Brighton 1. Sorry, I went through that kind of fast, jumping through all this fast. But yeah, we're getting into the action right away. But yeah, let's talk about this game. Sunderland were the better team on the weekend, but that doesn't mean diddly shit. And Brighton won. They got the goal. They withstood the pressure. And in the Premier League, you need to take whatever you can get. And actually, funnily enough, this result takes both teams to 10 wins, 10 draws, and 10 losses. And even 10-10-10 on the season. Sunderland, they were pushing towards the Champions League spots in the beginning of the season. It felt too good to be true, and ultimately it was too good to be true. But with this result, they were already at the 40-point mark, but with this result, Brighton gets to the 40-point mark. And for these mid-table Premier League teams, 40 points is what you want to get at. That's, the safety ground, the safety net, and typically the rule of thumb. If you get to 40 points, you'll be all right. So that's what to take away from this one. Next up was a massive game in the title fight. Arsenal hosting Everton. Arsenal at home, playing before Manchester City, so it was ultimately super important to get points. It was a pretty open game in the first half. I actually think Everton had the better chances as the game went on. I know Dwight McNeil hit the post. There was another opportunity where Ricardo Calafiori was having to make a incredibly acrobatic save. It was super impressive, like a scorpion kick of sorts. But then Arsenal would find their goal in the 90th minute. Max Dowman, a 16-year-old, came onto the game and sent in a cross, hits the groin of Pierre Hincapié, and Victor Gyökeres was right there to put it away. In the dying moments, Everton sent everyone forward trying to find an equalizer. That includes Jordan Pickford himself. It was cleared. Gyökeres got the header. Martinelli put another header on it. And Dowman, as cool as you like, 16 years old, I think like 79 days, beat out two defenders, had a wide open net, and got his first Premier League goal. Final in this one, Arsenal 2, Everton 0. That was a massive result for Arsenal. I mean, I think in years past, you look at that game and in their title fights, whether it be 22-23 or the 2023-24 season, Arsenal don't win that game. I've seen it before. The home games at the Emirates, I think it was Southampton in the past, West Ham in the past, Liverpool in the past. Arsenal don't win that game. And this team came out today and won. And it's for a multitude of reasons. I thought their attack was a level above what we'd seen in the week before against Bayer Leverkusen. Arteta was a little more daring with his subs when he brought on Dowman. He shifted Saka into like a dual 8 role with Eze, kind of pushing forward up to the 10 with Declan Rice as the lone pivot. And yeah, it was smart all around. And the smart decision was to bring on Max Dowman. This was Max Dowman's day. 16 years old, and the kid looked like a seasoned pro, sent in a fantastic cross, had the composure to get the one-on-one, and it was just a huge day at the Emirates. I think the celebrations kind of reflected everyone and everything on how they were feeling. It was that explosion of joy and ecstasy because Arsenal fans had seen that before. I thought this was another example of an Arsenal team that's just not going to do it in an important game at home. Again, we've seen it in the last 3 years where they're actually in the title fight. And it didn't happen today. And it was a huge day with some results that happened later on. But yeah, this was a fantastic result. Kind of tough for Everton. I thought Everton were really solid throughout most of the game. Again, Dwight McNeil creating chances as the game went on. But there was inevitability on Arsenal's side. I mean, yeah, it was one of those games where it felt like it was meant to be. But again, it was meant to be because the attack looked better. I really thought, the attack stepped up and did better. And yeah, so Arsenal continue to be at the top of the league. I want to mention the table. So yeah, with this result, Everton, they moved to 8th, which actually it makes sense. Because I was wondering to myself towards the end of the game, like, why is Everton pushing forward in the nature that they are, like, at this point of the season? But if Everton were to kind of make a run at it, they're definitely within the sights of a European spot. Arsenal are obviously still at the top of the table. They do have a game in hand. They've played a game more than everyone else. And yeah, I'm going to mention back to the first game of the day. Bournemouth are in 10th. Burnley are 19th. Brighton is ahead of Sunderland due to their goal differential. They have a +3 compared to Sunderland's -5. But yeah, we're going to move on to the next game on Saturday, and that was Chelsea versus Newcastle. It kind of happened concurrently with the Arsenal-Everton game. Only main action in this game, 18th minute, Timo Livramento takes the ball up for Newcastle, sends it through to Joe Willock, who was unmarked against the high line. Reece James kind of caught off guard, but then again, he wasn't anywhere close to the right back position, but he was the closest man to Willock. But he wasn't able to catch him. Willock then smartly dumps the ball off unselfishly to Anthony Gordon, who taps it in. And the final of this one from Stamford Bridge, Chelsea 0, Newcastle 1. Chelsea could have responded many ways after the rough first leg against PSG. And the nature in which Chelsea responded in this game was disappointing. It then turned out to be a week from hell because you're at home, you're in a Champions League fight, and you put up a really just kind of disappointing performance. The offense looked incredibly stale and uninspiring for a majority of the game, and once they went down, Newcastle, I think, were a little content to just sit back. And I think this was a game where they had an opportunity to show some grit and resolve and bounce back from a really rough result in Paris, and they just didn't do it. It was frankly disappointing, and they seemed like a team that really had the results against PSG in the back of their head. Maybe it's like the immaturity with some young guys, but they were not able to flip the switch and be like, okay, this is a new team, this is a new competition, we're back at home, let's figure it out. They look like a team that mentally had walked straight off that field in Paris to London. And yeah, they were down in the dumps. Cole Palmer, uninspiring. Unfortunately, Reece James picked up a hamstring injury from this game, which is a shame because I think he's been one of the best players in the Premier League this season. And I think anyone in England is going to be hard-pressed to get him healthy and ready for the World Cup. And the last game on Saturday was Manchester City versus West Ham United. 31st minute, Bernardo Silva has the ball on the left side. Kind of took a weird path. It was one of the goals. You see him a couple times this season where it looks like a player wanted to cross it, kind of swipes it with his feet, and it just was just the kind of the perfect swipe at it to get it past the West Ham goalkeeper. I really don't know how else to describe it. It was like he bladed it just right over, a little golf term. But then a couple minutes later, Konstantinos Mavropanos for West Ham got his face on a corner kick to tie the game up, which ended up being the final score in this one. West Ham 1, Manchester City 1. Sometimes in the title race, it's hard to go second because you know what your opponent did and you have to live with that. Manchester City, I imagine they watched the Arsenal-Everton game. Or not watch, they were preparing for a game, but they were keeping up with it. And they could see, like, okay, for long stretches, Arsenal may drop points, and then they don't, in dramatic fashion, in the last minute. And Manchester City go out later in the day, and they were uninspiring. You know, I hate to use the uninspiring word twice on the same day after just talking about Chelsea, but I really don't know how else to describe West Ham's play, their attack. These lineups that Guardiola is sending out, it just doesn't seem right to me. It felt like Rodri was overwhelmed in the midfield at times. Sometimes their attacking fusion just doesn't seem right. Erling Haaland seems like a shell of himself. He's on pace to have his worst goal-scoring season in 7 years. And this is now the second game in a row where Manchester City dropped points to a team in the relegation battle. This is not Pep Guardiola and Manchester City-esque. And yes, I'm looking at this with an incredibly modern lens of the dominant team that Manchester City's been for the last decade or so. But in the teams that I've seen, the treble-winning teams, the Centurions, the teams that duked it out with Alex Ferguson or even Liverpool, City never dropped these points. Pep Guardiola doesn't drop these points. There is something fundamentally wrong for the second week in a row in the Premier League. Compounding that after getting your ass whooped by a Real Madrid team who's hurt to hell, it's kind of crisis mode. Yes, there's opportunities in the Champions League and the League Cup and playing Arsenal in the Premier League to get it right. But this was one of the worst games I've seen from Manchester City in the contemporary Premier League era. Post-Fergie. Post-Guardiola. This is shocking. It was shocking. And now they're 9 points behind Arsenal, even with the game in hand. That's only 6. So they got to hope Arsenal drops points when they pick them up, when they don't look like a team that's going to pick them up. They have to beat Arsenal at home, which is realistic, and they have to win the game in hand. And if those things work out, they need to recover the, I think, 7 or 8 goal differential difference between Arsenal and Manchester City. So yeah, this was a Saturday to forget for Man City. It was embarrassing. It's tragic even. You know, actually, I'm doing a disservice to West Ham. I thought this was a fantastic result for them. You know, when you're in a relegation fight, you're going to want to pick up points however you can. Considering what happened across the league, it was a massive Saturday for them as well. So yeah, got a shout out West Ham. I thought Mavropanos played a hell of a game. Definitely looked like he was thinking about his former team in Arsenal on the weekend. I'm sorry. Like, to West Ham fans, I'm sorry. They deserve the respect too. But ultimately, like, the bigger story is going to be Manchester City dropping the points because, like, holy shit, Manchester City dropped the points. But we'll get into Sunday. Sunday in the Premier League was kind of disappointing. There were more 0-0 draws, and that's what we hate to see. We hate to see the 0-0 draws. I don't even give them the light of day. I mean, Nottingham Forest drew Fulham. Forest are in the relegation battle, so that was kind of massively important, you know, being at home. I gotta stop saying massively important. I need to come up with different adjectives. And the other one was Crystal Palace Leeds United. And this one actually did have some juice to it. There was a red card for Leeds United. There was also a missed penalty for Leeds United. But, no buts. Leeds United are very much in this relegation scrap. So, I definitely think they're going to rue the opportunity they had, missing a penalty away from home. Palace are middle of the table, so they'll be fine. But there were 2 games with goals, and they were pretty big, pretty important. First up was Manchester United versus Aston Villa, the highest scoring game in the Premier League on the weekend. The first goal was in the 53rd minute, corner sent in by Bruno Fernandes. Casemiro, kind of just the right man towards the front, puts it on his head, gets it right to just loop over Emi Martinez, give Manchester United a 1-0 lead. Aston Villa would fight back less than 10 minutes later. They had a corner. It was kind of cleared once, but it wasn't far enough. They cleared it twice, but again, it wasn't far enough. Lucas Digne then sends in a low cross that is nicely finished by Ross Barkley, tie the game up 1-1. But then in the 71st minute, Bruno Fernandes has the ball near midfield, sends Cunha through with a perfectly weighted pass, and Cunha finishes the breaking opportunity nicely. In the 81st minute, Cunha does well to advance the ball from the left wing, takes a few weird bounces after he crosses it. It lands with Benjamin Šeško, who puts it in the net to keep his good goal-scoring form going to get Manchester United their third goal of the game. The final in this one from Old Trafford, Manchester United 3, Aston Villa 1. Hot takes aside, Manchester United might actually be playing the best football in England currently. Now, they're at a whole sort of advantage, and that's not playing in Europe. They're much more rested compared to the Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, Newcastle, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, and Nottingham Forest of the world. But the form in which they've taken under Michael Carrick has been incredible. I mean, people are seriously considering Bruno Fernandes for player of the season, and that's not ridiculous. He's breaking assist records at Manchester United, and there's a very good chance in the last 8 games he could break the all-time Premier League assist record. A lot of it has to go down to the three attacking signings. Matheus Cunha, Bryan Mbeumo, and Benjamin Šeško. A lot of great teams in Premier League history sign proven Premier League talent. And a lot of teams sometimes will get away from that. But if you look at players who have done well in Premier League in recent years, Moise Caicedo at Chelsea came from the Premier League, already been proven. John Stones, Everton to Man City, was already a proven player. Declan Rice, West Ham to Arsenal, already a proven player. So when Manchester United went out and got Cunha and Mbeumo, 2 already proven players, that made sense to me. Take the already proven players who know how to play in the Premier League week in, week out, and mix them with a guy like Šeško, who is learning the ropes of the Premier League. Because it's a difficult league to adjust to. I mean, we've seen it many times where players have struggled in this league. And under Michael Carrick, it really just feels like this front four, again combined with Bruno Fernandes, is just clicking. It's doing something right. And Lamens in goal has been holding the line. The defense and the midfield is doing what it needs to do. Casemiro looks like the player he was at Real Madrid. I mean, I know he's not. I know he's physically not. But, I mean, it's not the Jamie Carragher leave the football before the football leaves you. I mean, this looks like a guy who still has a lot of football left to be played. Or soccer, whatever. But Manchester United look fantastic right now. On form, the best team in England. You almost got to ask the question, if they got rid of Amorim, like at the beginning of the season, maybe 10 games in, where would they be? I don't think it'd be challenging for a title. I think that would just be too much. That would be too ridiculous of a take. But they look good. Unai Emery, though, I like the guy. I think he's a competent manager. He's had Europa League success with Villarreal and Sevilla that speaks for itself. His times at PSG and Arsenal have left a little bit to be desired, but I think what he's done at Aston Villa over the last couple of years has been fantastic. However, he can't really shake the reputation of a guy whose teams just kind of sort of fall apart towards the end of the season. I mean, if you look at the soccer Aston Villa were playing in the fall, while they were week in, week out in the Champions League, they were doing great. And kind of ever since that 4-1 drubbing against Arsenal, they're slowly slipping away. And with each week in which they drop points, they're just getting closer and closer to falling out of Champions League spots. And with kind of new economic regulations and the way Aston Villa are trying to build up this team, falling out of the Champions League spots for them and not guaranteeing that money potentially in the future is going to be damaging. And yeah, I think over the next few weeks, they really need to buck the trend that they're currently in, or they'll end the season playing in the Europa League again. Maybe winning the competition is their best shot in moving forward. But then we have one final game on Sunday, and that was Liverpool hosting Tottenham. 2 teams having disappointing seasons. Now, the magnitude in which those seasons can be considered disappointing are wholly different. But they're disappointing nonetheless. The game gets started. Dominic Szoboszlai, the player of the season for Liverpool, hit his 5th free kick goal of the season. I think the combination of just whip and pace was too much for the Tottenham keeper Vicario to handle. And despite having the lead and the chances for most of the game in the 90th minute, Vicario sends a long ball forward. Andy Robertson made a mess of it out of the back. Randall Colomwani, the Tottenham attacker, he wins it, has the ball, lays it off nicely to Richarlison, and the former Everton man himself buries it to take points off of Liverpool. The final of this one from Anfield, Liverpool 1, Tottenham 1. All right, first up, Liverpool. I mean, if they can't get their act together, they might not make Champions League. I think they're really benefiting from the fact that the teams around them are sort of struggling as well, because their defensive fragility towards the end of the game has been such a liability this season. I mean, they've dropped so many points to where if you take away those goals that they've given up after the 90th minute, they'd be in the title fight. But instead, this story that we've seen so many times, these lapses of judgment, defense that was impenetrable for years is starting to crack as guys are getting older and replacements haven't lived up. I think, they've got a Trent Alexander-Arnold sized hole in their defense. Even if he wasn't the best attacker, something's just not right there. Robertson, who was a great steward of the club for years, making a mistake to drop the points. And there's a lot of negative discourse around Liverpool. I think a lot of it will fluctuate too based off how they do in the Champions League this year, whether or not they'll go through against Galatasaray. There's people that have gone, calling for Arne Slot's head. I have listened into some Liverpool stuff. It doesn't seem like he's lost Anfield like, the week in, week out Liverpool fans. And I think there is a lot to be sympathetic. I've said all season the whole Diogo Jota thing is something to consider, and I will always kind of take that in mind this year, because how do you don't really cope with that. And it's just another example of this broken record of a Liverpool team that really just makes these stupid, silly mental mistakes and drops points at the end of games. It's not how you're going to get in the Champions League. As for Tottenham, that was a decent display. It's been hell for Spurs. Worst season I've ever seen under them. They're very much in a relegation fight. To go to Anfield and to get any points, I thought they were going to get smacked. I thought this game could end 2-3-4-0. And with Solskjaer putting the goal in within the first 20 minutes, I was like, okay, yep, Tottenham lost. But, they kind of sat back, absorbed pressure. Their mentality was there to give the fight to Liverpool, get those points at the end of the game. It's just a positive that they needed desperately. I think most times Tottenham would be excited to go into Anfield and get a point. Most teams are. It's one of the hardest places to play in the world. But they just need a little spark. Put in a good shift against Atletico. You're probably not going to win the tie. We're not talking remontada here. But get these points against Liverpool. Put in a respectable appearance against Atletico. And just hope that you can turn this season around and survive. Because they fought like they had to survive today. And if they just keep doing that for the end of the season, hell, they might be all right. This game could be one we look at and be like, okay, that's when Tottenham saved their season and didn't get relegated. It's because they went to Anfield, fought hard, and got their point. Final game of the Premier League weekend. On Monday, Brentford hosting Wolves. Get this game started 22nd minute. Brentford with possession. Left back Keane Lewis-Potter whipped in a cross, and Michael Coyote tracked the cross to redirect the ball into the far corner. Really just strong header. Really good cross. Brentford get a 1-0 lead. I believe it was for Coyote's first goal for the team in the Premier League. 37th minute, Brentford go route one with it. Kyle Keller sends a long ball forward. Dengo Ouattara gets behind his defender. Wonderful touch to control the ball, and when he's in on goal, passes it across the goalie to Igor Thiago, who puts it away to double Brentford's lead. I think that's his 19th goal so far in the Premier League this season. I believe that's second behind Erling Haaland. 44th minute, though, Wolves would try to play it out of the back. They got a little lucky when not the greatest ball lands at the feet of Jean Rickner Bellegarde, who has acres of space to run into after he got that lucky position. He then finds Adam Armstrong in stride, who scores a nice goal from outside the box to cut the lead in half. And then in the 77th minute, Wolves are attacking. A ball is sent forward. It lands with Angel Gomez, who then puts it in the box. It bounces awkwardly, and when a ball bounces one too many times in a box, someone is going to land on it. Tolu Arakadari is there to head it in the back of the net. The final in this one, Brentford 2, Wolves 2. Wolves are probably going to go down, but they have showed incredible amount of heart in the end of this season. I mean, you don't want teams to just roll over and die when they're clearly going down. And it's the fact that in recent weeks, they've gotten points off Villa, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Brentford. That is no easy feat. And that's 4 teams that very much could be in England next year, or in Europe next year representing England. Yes, it's probably too little too late. They pulled a lot of luck last year. They used up Lady Luck when they survived after their poor start to the season. But this Wolves team has heart. And if this is how they're playing under their new manager, I think it's a good chance that they could survive. Going down in the championship is hard. And it's hard to yo-yo. Even with the parachute payments. It's just such a blow. And this has been coming. And the fact that we haven't seen an established Premier League team get relegated in like 2 or 3 years. But if Wolves can take this mentality, eat up points for the rest of the season, fucking piss off everyone else, because who cares, they'll be all right. They'll be all right. I think you win a couple games before the end of the year, you'll get your fans, calm them down before the end of the season. Players are playing well. Arakadare, I've been mentioning his name a lot in the last few weeks. We'll be all right. Brentford, obviously going to be disappointed. They're a team that's pushing for Premier League European qualification. And have a 2-0 lead at home against the bottom team of the Premier League and drop it. I mean, I don't need to explain myself there. I mean, that's horrific. That's awful. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be that team. And that's ultimately what happened. And yeah, that's our 10 Premier League games on the weekend. I feel like we flew by that. I kind of want to go over the table one more time. So I'm going to look to my right, put up something on the screen so you can't see the distracted eyes. Arsenal, again, with their 9-point lead at the top over Manchester City. Manchester United and Villa wrapping up the guaranteed Champions League spots of 3 and 4. Liverpool currently occupying the more than likely Champions League spot of 5th place. They're right 1 point ahead of Chelsea, and they might want to try to improve on that gap because I didn't realize how much better Chelsea's goal differential was up compared to Liverpool. Brentford sitting in that last assumed European spot because one of Arsenal and Man City is going to win the League Cup, and I don't see a non-Premier League side winning the FA Cup. Everton, Newcastle not too far behind them. Even the teams sitting at like 40 points, Bournemouth, Fulham, Brighton, Sunderland, 6 out of 8 wins towards the end of the season could get them into Europe. I've seen crazier stuff. Send it down, Palace, Leeds, and then Leeds is where we start the relegation fight with Leeds at 32 points, Tottenham at 16, 30 points, followed by Forest, West Ham, Burnley, and then Wolves. Burnley and Wolves might be a little too far down, but I was reflecting on this weekend, and it was all these low-scoring games, the 1-1s. I think we had 3 0-0s, multiple 1-1s. Even Arsenal was only a 2-0 victory. You only had 2 games that went over 3 goals. That was United, Villa, and Brentford Wolves. And I looked into it. So it was a low-scoring weekend in the Premier League. And I wanted to look into it. I was like, is this bad? Because you're seeing all this discourse online about how, it's just long throw-ins and corners, and this is the worst league we've ever seen, and play is so bad, and it's so boring. And I don't think that. But I looked at this weekend, and I was like, man, the goals were kind of not there to be found, and it's kind of coming off of a not great week for English teams in the Champions League. So I wanted to look into it and see what's up with it. And the Premier League's averaging 2.75 goals a season this year. And that's the lowest it's been in 5 years. And I was like, okay, yeah, like we got spoiled there for a little bit, post-COVID, the goals started to increase. I mean, we looked at 2.85 in 22-23, an insane 3.28 goals a game in 23-24, and even last year, you had 2.93 goals a game, which these are some of the highest scoring seasons since the Premier League started. But then I looked really far back into the past, and the 2.75 is better than all but one season from 1992-93 to 2008-2009. More goals. Now, yes, like 30% of them are free kick goals. But there were plenty of free kick and corner goals back in the day. I mean, David Beckham made a career out of free kick goals. So you mean to tell me, with the exception of one season, that the lower scoring 92-93 to 2009 seasons were better? You ask anyone, you go over to England, you ask anyone about Premier League in that era, they'd be like, oh, these guys were great, these guys could play, they were better. But the game's boring now. There's just as many goals. I mean, goals are why we watch the game. Corner goals are entertaining. Free kick goals are entertaining. How dangerous long throw-ins can be is entertaining. The game evolves, the game changes, trends come in. Antonio Conte came in with 3 at the back, and the whole league was playing like that within the year. The game ebbs, the game flows. But ultimately, you watch the game to see goals. And the goals really haven't gone anywhere. This is an average season. I just think everyone is so goddamn cynical, and I think it's Twitter and social media. Because anytime you talk about anything, it's just such a negative presence. And I think the Premier League's fine. The league's fine. The league's entertaining. It wasn't a great weekend, but the goals are being scored. This is a perfectly fine season. I mean, 2006, 2007. 2.48 goals per game. That's boring. This is fine. But we're going to jump into other leagues. So that's the Premier League for this weekend. And yeah, I'm not going to talk Champions League. And I mentioned it earlier. It's hard. You know, I come out with the show on Tuesdays into Wednesdays. Wednesday nights the latest. And with choosing to put the show in the middle of the week, it's kind of smack dab in the middle of any European game. So if I talked in depth about the first leg, and then you listen to the show a week later, most of the second legs have probably been played. I know the result of the first 4 second legs, but I'll run through them uber quickly. I mean, like lightning speed. Galatasaray, pretty surprising 1-0 win over Liverpool. Bayern Munich traveled to Atalanta and picked up a dominant 6-1 win. Atletico Madrid beat the brakes off Tottenham, 5-2 win. Newcastle United Barcelona played to a 1-1 tie. I actually think Newcastle were the better team on the day. On Wednesday, Bayer Leverkusen and Arsenal played to a 1-1 tie, and I think Bayer Leverkusen were the better team on the day. Bodo Glimt with a surprising 3-0 victory over Sporting. PSG dominating Chelsea towards the end of the game to win 5-2. And then a surprising Fede Valverde hat-trick to give Real Madrid a 3-0 lead over Manchester City. Again, next week we'll go in-depth on the second legs, the ties, what to take from the ties. We'll talk about the upcoming Champions League quarterfinal matchups. It'll be better. But we're gonna talk other leagues. We're gonna talk other leagues that are in title races, and outside probably the best shaping up title race, even though it's one we've seen a million times before, is Barcelona Real Madrid. Both teams came into this game or this weekend with games. Barcelona with 4 points ahead of, Barcelona were 4 points ahead of Real Madrid in the table, and Real Madrid are going through sort of an injury crisis right now. So I was kind of interested to see how the games would play. Real Madrid were up first in the weekend, and they were hosting Elche. So we get that game started. 39th minute, Brahim Diaz is fouled outside the box on the free kick. Fede Valverde indirectly hits it right at the Elche keeper, who cannot save it, but he was able to redirect it, punched it with his fist. It eventually ends up after a few bounces in front of Antonio Rudiger, who hits it out of the air well to open the scoring, go at 1-0. 44th minute, Fede Valverde keeps his good run of form going, attacking with Madrid. He plays some passes, ends up with the ball right at the top of the box, hit a shot that wasn't the fastest, but it was just incredibly well placed to get past the Elche keeper, up 2-0. 66th minute, Daniel Yanez has the ball on the right wing for Madrid, sends in a floating cross to Dean Howson, who heads it like a center forward, not a center back, and Real Madrid's up 3-0. 85th minute, Madrid give the ball away out of the back, Tchouaméni. Elche pounce. Rafa Mira has the ball in the box, looks to play a pass across the face of goal, and Manuel Angel, the Real Madrid midfielder, the youngster, puts it, 22, but puts it in the back of the net for an unfortunate own goal. And then the 89th minute, one of the best goals you'll see, Arda Güler has the ball deep in his own side, like 70 yards away from goal. Sees the Elche keeper off the line, plays an audacious shot that takes one bounce and finds the back of the net. Final in this one, Real Madrid 4, Elche 1. Injuries are not stopping Real Madrid of late. I mean, coming off the good performance against Manchester City, they still don't have certain guys like Mbappe and Bellingham back. And in Real Madrid fashion, over the last few years, is when one player is out, someone else will step in. Fede Valverde kept that hat-trick momentum and played a fantastic game. His attacking was sharp. I mean, he was involved in the build-up. Brahim Diaz had a great game. I mean, Howson, the step up and look like a center forward scoring there. It's crazy. And, if they're going to compete in two fronts in the way that they are, playing Champions League games in the midweek, because they'll probably advance against Manchester City, and chasing the 4-point difference against Barcelona, they're going to need players outside of Vinny, Mbappe, and Rodrigo being out to step up. And that's what we've seen. And it was a good result from Real Madrid. I think they showed a lot of fight on the weekend, even if it was a lesser opponent. So they closed the gap. The gap was down to 1, but Barcelona were up against Sevilla at home, and they got it started quickly. 9th minute, Barcelona on the attack. Rafinha and Marc Bernal play a 1-2 in the box that results in Bernal being fouled. Rafinha hits a cheeky Panenka penalty to open the scoring. And then in the 21st minute, Joao Cancelo makes a move in the box for Barca. Well, it was a few minutes before that. A player was lying down. It hits his arm and on a dive. It was a lengthy-ish VAR check. Rafinha steps up for his second penalty of the night and puts it down the left side to make it 2-0. 38th minute, Marc Bernal attacking down the left, tries to hit the run of Rafinha, takes a deflection, and lands perfectly at the feet of Dani Olmo, who puts it away. First time to give Barcelona a 3-0 lead. In injury time in the first half, Sevilla were attacking right back, Juan Luis Sanchez down the right, sends in a floating cross. It lands with Oso, who unmarked does well to finally put it in the goal off the volley, make it 3-1 at half. I concur with the announcers at ESPN that at that point Barcelona were just ready for halftime, kind of turned their brains off. They got it right after halftime, though. 51st minute, Rafinha gets his hat trick. He has the ball in the box, hits a shot that just gets the gnarliest of deflections. There's nothing the Sevilla keeper can do. 4-1, and then in the 60th minute, Joao Cancelo finds himself down the left side with a bunch of space. He had a few opportunities across the ball, but he decided to do it himself. Gets past one guy, gets past second guy, 5 holes the keeper, makes it 5-1. And then in the second half injury time, Sevilla got their second goal. Oso sent in a cross. Jabril Sow hit an acrobatic header, 5-2. Referee blew the whistle right after. Gotta give Rafinha his flowers. I mean, dude has been just consistently scoring for Barcelona since he's came over. He put in a good game. I mean, the attack was so dangerous. There was nothing that Sevilla defense could do. And Barcelona now keep their lead 4 points at the top. And with, how much the gap is between Barcelona and Real Madrid and some of these La Liga teams, that 4 points might be too much for Real Madrid. And Barcelona, yes, they're going to be playing in the Champions League, but these guys are really starting to seem to pick it up. They had some injuries at the beginning of the season. Lewandowski's back, Yamal's back, and those guys didn't even have to have good games today. Rafinha, Bernal, Cancelo took it upon themselves, played well. Let the guys, when Rafinha scored his third goal, Yamal came off the bench and celebrated with him. You keep one of your better players off the bench, pick up a good league win, and then focus on the Champions League. Barcelona could be coming home with trophies this season. It's a very realistic possibility. The only Spanish game, we're only talking title fights in other leagues. Just a little recap. Atletico Madrid and Villarreal are occupying the other Champions League spots. I don't know if Spain is going to walk away with the extra Champions League, that 5th spot that you get for better coefficient. Some bigger clubs, Sociedad's in 7th, Bilbao's in 10th, Valencia 14th, Sevilla 15th. Elche, Levante, and Real Oviedo are sitting in the relegation spots. We'll go over to Germany, and in their title race, well, sort of a title race. Bayern Munich have a pretty sizable lead at the top. And it's just a matter of, can Dortmund kind of keep chopping at their heels? Dortmund has had opportunities in the past, and they've kind of squandered it. But this weekend wasn't one of them. Bayer Leverkusen, Bayern Munich, 6th minute. Leverkusen take the ball from Luis Diaz. Nice counter. Decent play by Patrick Schick and Alex Garcia. Garcia then hit a shot, took a wild deflection. Bayer Leverkusen have a 1-0 lead over Munich. 42nd minute. Nicholas Jackson makes a dangerous tackle on Martin Terrier that VAR actually upgraded from a yellow card to a red card. And Bayern are down to 10 men. But in the 69th minute, Bayern still managed to catch Leverkusen on a bad turnover. It was a 4-on-3. Michael Elise just played a fantastic pass to Douglas Luiz. Nutmegged his defender. Luiz then coolly finishes his pass to the keeper to tie this game up 1-1. Then the 84th minute, Luis Diaz got a yellow for simulation, which actually turned out to be his second yellow. And Bayern were now down to 9 men. They just survived the last 14 minutes of the game. 15 minutes, maybe. Down 9 men. And they survived. But they dropped points. Then we're going to move on to the other game, and we're going to talk about both of them. Dortmund was hosting Augsburg. 13th minute. Dortmund with a smart attack. It was really good play. It was bang, 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 quick passing. It was like too many quick little passes to write down. And it ended with Karim Adeyemi in the middle, finishing up nice to open the scoring. And then, they were really much in control throughout the whole game. 59th minute, Dortmund have a corner. Julian Ryerson's cross ends up at the head of 18-year-old Luca Reggiani, the young Italian center back, scores his first ever senior level goal to give Dortmund a 2-0 lead, which ended up being the final score. It was really cool. There's the passion in the kid. Like, the kid scored and he just went crazy. Yeah, you scored your first ever, senior level goal. It was an incredible thing. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about the German title fight. I don't want to say the German title fight's open. I mean, it was a really sloppy day from Bayern. They were incredibly undisciplined. I think, if they'd been able to keep 11 men on the field, they might have been able to walk out of Leverkusen with the victory. But they couldn't keep the red cards out. And now, actually, Jackson and Diaz are going to be suspended, which now you've got guys like Harry Kane who are going to have to play more with upcoming Champions League fixtures. And then you got Dortmund, who got the job done, had Augsburg come to home, and coolly won 2-0. The point I'm making is Bayern are making it a little too difficult for themselves at this point in the season. There's 8 games left, and it's a 9-point gap. And Dortmund had a chance recently to trim this down more. But results like this, it's just like, it's got to be a thorn in Bayern's side. You're put your head down. All you got to care about this season is Champions League. The Bundesliga should be done. But Dortmund have had a really strong defense on the season, only giving up a goal a game. And I've seen 9 points in 8 games is tough, but it's not impossible. So Bayern are kind of handcuffing themselves with having to care about the league more. And if Dortmund can get 1 or 2 more weekends soon like this, we could be talking about German title fights more. I doubt it, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. We're looking at Germany. Hoffenheim, Stuttgart, and RB Leipzig sit 3rd, 4th, and 5th. 3rd, 4th, and 5th. 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Gosh, what am I getting into? I think Germany actually is in a pretty strong contention to walk away with that extra Champions League spot. But yeah, no, a team like Leipzig should be doing better. Leverkusen's not too far in 6th. Wolfsburg and Heidenheim are currently sitting in the relegation spots, with St. Pauli, the left-wing club, occupying the relegation playout spot. And then we're going to move to Italy. This was a weekend to forget for AC Milan. On Saturday, Inter hosts Atalanta. They've got a lead at the top of the league. They drop points. If you're Milan, you can cut the 8-point lead down to 5. And that's huge. Considering you just beat Inter, there's going to be 9 games left. A team that's 5 points down with 9 games left still has a lot to play for. You go to Lazio, a Lazio team that's been inconsistent as the year goes on, and you drop points. So now, with 9 games, instead of 5 points, you're sitting at 8 points. And yes, it's 1 game. But that would have made the difference in the world. I mean, this was a weekend to forget for Milan. They win, and we're talking about something completely different. I mean, I know this is no groundbreaking analysis or anything, but I woke up Sunday hoping to see a decent performance from Milan to increase, the hope that this Italian title fight could be something, and they let me down. Mamma mia. But there's a really cool story also out of Italy. Como just continue to keep doing it. Fabregas's men saw Roma come to town. They picked up a 2-1 victory. They were sitting in a Champions League spot. They were sitting 4th or 1 point ahead of Juventus. And they've managed to sit in these spots throughout most of the year. And I guess I could be a hater. They've got the young kid Paz. Like, he's good. They have a really good player who was their manager. But for most of the season, I was waiting for that drop-off. And the fact that we're 29 games in the season, and they're still ahead of the likes of Juventus, Roma, Atalanta, hell, even Bologna, who's a recent cup winner and has played really good soccer in the last few years. I'm pulling for him now. Let's break it up. I mean, Atalanta kind of came in and broke up the big 7 of sorts of Italian football a few years ago. Let's get Como up there. I mean, they've got some decent backing. I know it's not the biggest team, it's not the biggest stadium, but let's get some fresh blood. Make Europe next year. Make some signings. I'd love to see that. Maybe Europa League. Maybe let's simmer it down actually for a minute. Competition where they might pick up a little more wins, build up a coefficient, build up some money. But yeah, no, Como been one of the better stories of European football this year. So France is in a title fight. Lens is right on PSG's heels. PSG have dropped points in 7 games so far into the season, and they haven't been as dominant as they've been in years past. But PSG didn't play this weekend because, like last year, the league has been giving PSG time off in between their Champions League fixtures. And you know what? I respect that. Yes, I don't think Chelsea fans are going to be too excited by the fact that they have to play an important Premier League game with Champions League implications in between their 2 Champions League fixtures against PSG while they get the weekend off. But you know what? I respect that out of the French league. Being like, hey, you're our one team left in this competition. We want the league to have money. We want the league's reputation to do better. They get a higher coefficient. You get more Champions League spots. Fuck it. Take the weekend off. We'll reschedule it down the line. Go beat an English team. I respect that. It's going to piss people off from other countries. But no, if you're the French league, you got to do whatever's best for French teams. And I just wonder if anyone will copy it in the future. I mean, they're at the advantage with the 18 team league. You're only going to play 34 versus the 38 game seasons of the Premier League, La Liga, and Serie A. But it also kind of gives PSG an advantage because now they've got that game in hand in their title race, being a point ahead, and it's against Nantes. My parlez-vous français, French isn't the greatest, but yeah, they're towards the bottom of the table. So I respect that French league, Ligue, French Federation, my butchered French attempts. That's exactly what you should do to benefit your teams. Now, there's one league I want to talk about outside of the Big Five. And it's a decent league. It's not Turkey. It's not Portugal. It's not the Netherlands. It's Scotland. So, it was a big weekend in Scotland. The story all season has been Hearts. They've gotten points off Celtic and Rangers. They're looking to beat the duopoly. The Glasgow duopoly that's had control in Scotland. They've won every title since, I think it was like Aberdeen in the 80s. And Hearts has had a lead for most of the season. But they had a bad weekend. Celtic placed first. They get a 3-1 win over Motherwell. Hearts then have to travel to Kilmarnock, and they drop points. A 1-0 loss. Rangers then plays on Sunday, and they get a 1-0 victory over St. Mirren. So we've got a title fight in Scotland, a 3-way title fight. Because after 30 games, Hearts is sitting at 63 points, Celtic's sitting at 61, and Rangers is sitting at 60. And they all have very similar goal differentials. Now, for those who don't know, the Scottish League breaks in half, and then after 33 games, and you play one more game against each of the teams in your half of the season. But if you look at any, I think, sort of reputable league in Europe, this Scottish title fight might be the best. And with Hearts dropping points, that's the one I'm going to keep my eyes out for. And yeah, no, that's, like, competition-wise, that's all I've really got this week. I don't know. I mean, we're at the 49-minute mark. I know I got to cut down some time, but yeah, I mean, that's all I got, like, game-wise. There's two news things we're going to get into. So we'll do that first. First off, the African Confederation has ruled that Senegal, in their Cup of Nations final, when they walked off against Morocco due to some dodgy refereeing, that was considered a forfeit, and months after the final, they've now ruled it 3-0 in Morocco's favor. Senegal is obviously going to appeal it with the Court 4 Arbitration of Sport. What the fuck? Like, what are we doing? AFCON is one of my favorite competitions. I think the entertainment value alone is astronomical compared to other sporting competitions. But this feels like, I don't know if gimmicky is the word, or corrupt, fraudulent. The Moroccan ball boys were like fucking with goalkeepers, stealing towels. The refereeing decisions that just seemed overtly blatant in Morocco's favor all game just meant nothing. And yes, I don't know what the rules are about a team walking off, but if AFCON, who their representatives and their leaders are at the game, don't make that decision in the moment, you don't get to make that decision 2 months down the line. I mean, the title is still very much, it's always going to be Senegal's. It was an incredible game. I mean, the Brahim Diaz chip, Panenka, that blew it at the end, that was incredible. Winning the game, the controversy, the drama, Twitter, it was all incredible. And you don't just get to change that. That's stupid. I don't agree with that. I mean, no disrespect to Morocco. I don't really feel any way about either team. But Senegal won that game. They deserve to win that game. And I'm really hoping the appeal gets reversed and we can just forget that ever changed. The other thing that I'm like kind of weird on, I read that if every English team lost their Champions League tie and their Europa League tie and their Conference League tie, that England would still be one of the top 2 teams coefficient rating, and they would still get the extra spot. And yeah, coefficients don't really matter as much as they used to with the way the pots are split up and you play 2 teams from each pot, but your country coefficient is still important. And I don't know, if all the English teams go out, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's say like of the 9 English teams playing in Europe, like 3 go through. And then, they have their different runs. But England still finishes one of the top 2 countries. Like, does UEFA need to look at how they do coefficients? I mean, because, yes, it is impressive that they've all got out of the league phases. And I can think of plenty of teams from the likes of Germany, Italy, Spain, and France who didn't get out of their league phase groups, Villarreals of the world. Or teams that didn't make it through the playoff rounds, your Juventuses of the world. But is all your teams just qualifying for the round of 16 good enough to guarantee that extra spot? I mean, I think UEFA should weigh it like a little heavier towards maybe the teams that win it all. Teams get to the semifinals, get to the quarterfinals. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not looking at the math right. I know as you go on, you can't lose points. You can only gain points. And it's an average of everyone. And all the English teams are in the round of 16. But I don't know. I don't know if, like, all the English teams lose at this phase and none of them make a deep run. Could you really still consider England one of the 2 better countries that competed in Europe this year? They didn't win a single title, or hell, didn't even make a single semifinal, but they still get the benefit of that extra spot? I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't add up. I don't know. Maybe the math does math. Maybe UEFA just needs to change the coefficients. But I read that article. It's like, what the hell are we doing? It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. We'll be back next week. I know next week we're going to have a much, much longer episode. I know next week we'll have the Carabao Cup final, the Champions League, all 8 fixtures, the Europa League, Conference League. We could preview the quarterfinals of each league, which I think we'll do because there's an international break as well. And on top of like the Carabao Cup weekend, you'll have like regular English league, Spain, Italy, France. If PSG ever play in their league again. Oh, excuse me, and others. But yeah, that's it. I think it's going to be a shorter episode, definitely on the shorter end of the stick. But yeah, if you made it this far, I appreciate you. I love you. This is Talk Soccer to me. The best weekly soccer podcast you've never heard of. Again, like, subscribe, comment, follow, tell your grandmother. Give us some love. We're all on social media. We're just, we're trying to do something here. And by do something, I think it's hard to find media that encompasses everything going on in the big European leagues week in, week out. You get your podcasts that interview people. You get your podcasts that talk about the grand scheme of things. But just nitty gritty, who won in each league? And how did they win? And how are they doing? I don't need a Premier League best 11 for the millionth time. I don't need interviews. Tell me who won the Napoli game, which I didn't this weekend. Or tell me who won the Sunderland game. How are the title fights going? Who's going to get relegated in France? That's what we're here to provide for the people. That's what we're here for. Hopefully our audio is good. We'll get to editing. But again, if you made it this far, I love you. I appreciate you. Shout us out on social media. Apologize for my creaky chair. Have a great night.